if you look at cryptocurrency, which is the predominant application of blockchain at the moment, Nigeria is one of the top markets in the world in terms of crypto, in spite of the central bank regulations, because the use cases are much. Remittances, transferring money back home, paying school fees. There are lots of the use cases for cryptocurrency specifically. But I think the interesting and the more use cases I like to see more of, and we don't yet have enough of, are those other applications of the blockchain. So like you said, I mean, one area, for example, where I think blockchain has a large role in Nigeria is around contracts and public tendering. One of the biggest areas where there is corruption loophole in Nigeria is around contracting and tendering, and that's a place where blockchain can play a role. But that said, I think blockchain is fantastic technology, but I think we shouldn't get too hung up on technology, on the technology itself. We need to always step back and look at things from a design angle first. What exactly is the problem we're trying to solve? Who are we trying to solve it for? How are they? What kind of technology do they currently have access to? And what can we build on what they currently have access to as a starting point, as we then move them towards more sophisticated technology? I think where lots of people make mistakes is they start with the sophisticated technology first, and then they wonder why the market is not adopting the solution. But if you flip it the other way around, start with what they're familiar with. If it is SMS they're familiar with, then create something on SMS. If it's USSD they're familiar with, create something on USSD. If it is QR codes, create something there, and then move them to the more complex technology. So let's not get too hung up on the technology itself. Just as blockchain has come, so much new technology is going to come online that we're not familiar with. We need to start first with the people. It's the psychology, the culture of the people that is usually the best and the first jump off point before we get hung up in how sophisticated technology is or not. So I think, again, it's one of those areas where we also need to do a little bit of step back too. Who are the teachers in the schools? Why are they teachers and why are they teaching? How are they using technology themselves? How do we meet them where they are? How do we take technology to schools without requiring heavy upfront investment? Years ago, they did a survey in a teacher training college in Nigeria and found that 85% of the students in the college wish they were not there. Like, left to them, they will not teach. So for them, teaching is a job of last recourse. So the excitement, the passion about preparing the future generation already is missing. So whether you layer technology on, it will just be adding lipstick on a pig. It already have a bad situation, then you're just enhancing it with technology. I think you need to go a step backwards. How do we get teachers that are excited about helping us educate the next generation? And how do we use technology, give them technology that fits with how they're using technology? If the teacher is comfortable with WhatsApp and Facebook, then how do you create technology that mimics, mirrors, or builds on those on the technologies that they're familiar with? How do you remunerate them well? Because again, for lots of those teachers, yeah, you're asking us to use technology, you're giving us more work, while we're, as it is, underpaid and undermotivated. So in thinking about, yes, it's good to think about teacher to student technology, but let's go a step backwards first, and let's even get the teachers in the right frame of mind, and then create technology tools that meet them where they are, and then takes them on the journey that we need them to go on.
To add to that, I would also suggest that the teacher training has to change. In effect, a lot of teacher training is old training. And what we now need to do is we now need to use technology to re-engage teachers. And also, as I pointed out, there's a lot of learner to teacher education and reorientation that's happening, because the younger generation, the younger learners, already experience technology in a very different way. And what we want them to be able to do is for teachers to meet them in their space. And by doing that, they understand and they are dealing with more motivated learners, because you're teaching the learners in the way they see learning to be. And given that, the teachers will start to develop new skills, and the skills that are appropriate for the learners to basically move further forward. But yes, I agree with much of what Femi said.
Thank you for the question. I think to start off with, we need to focus on using the right technology for the environment we play in. So that being the case, we need to focus on human-centered design of solutions, which is one of the things Femi talked about, designing for the problem at hand. So some of our solutions, we have used things like encrypted SMS in rural areas where there's no internet connection for you to still do your payments. So that's one of the things that can be done. There has to be a level of education, financial education, for people in, let's say, rural areas or the end users you're talking about to fully understand your services and hopefully be in a position to effect change, both immediately and in the long term. So this can be done by the use of agents, knowledgeable agents, who can literally, who speak the language, who understand the local people, who are trustworthy, and who can educate the users. And one of the other things that has to be done to deepen financial inclusion is you have to change the payment ecosystem. As one of the things I've said earlier was a situation where mobile money is not as used or as not developed because we still don't have a payment ecosystem. You get people going to agents to pull out cash to be able to go and pay a merchant in cash. However, if the ecosystem permits merchants to be able to receive digital payments, that in itself can be another way of driving financial inclusion. So to summarize, the three main ways are human-centered design on what the needs are, financial education to drive change in behavior, and the payment ecosystem to facilitate digital payments.
I think what's missing is practicality of what is of the knowledge in digital in the context of our needs as a society. So it is not enough for me. I mean, I did electrical electronics engineering in IFE, but my entire course was mostly theoretical. Yes, you have industrial attachment when you're supposed to go work in industry. But for my industrial attachment, my key learning was that I didn't want to work as an electrical electronics engineer. But in terms of, as a part of the curriculum, let's focus on the needs of the society, be firmly integrated into the delivery and the running of the curriculum. When you're doing your BSc thesis, how do you pick problems that tie to the needs of the society as the basis for your research? And do that with clarity on which industries will be able to use the output of the research that you're working on. Which sectors will be able to use that output? We did some work, we CC Hub did some work funded by Facebook a few years ago, when we went into universities across Nigeria to identify academic research that could be converted into products at the heart of new startups, and then incubate those ideas. We need more things like that. We can't see the purpose of university as a means to go and get a degree so that you can get a job in a bank or in a telco. It has to be tied to what are you going to use what you're learning to do to improve the quality of the society and the economy of the society in very concrete terms. And we should have a range of channels where you can actually start applying that before you're even done in university in a way that's also profitable and helps you meet your livelihood needs.
It looks like South African and Indian schools have, because they have this online learning team. It looks as if we have most of our students in that direction. Online learning has taken over, has created a new niche, which is making, and because of this issue of branding, a lot of Nigerians seem to like having foreign certificates that are gotten online vis-a-vis local certificates. But I also think the last speaker spoke very well, which is that rather than focus on functional skills or just acquiring certificates, looking at how they can apply them to real life situations is what really matters. So I think it's not so much about the certificates, but integrate it into what we do today to solve a problem. I think that is where the real benefit will come. What we have today are people who speak a lot of the theory, have a lot of background knowledge, which is very good, but have not been able to apply it to solve real life problems. And until that happens, you won't see that role elevated to senior management role, leadership role, where they can add value to business.
We need to be able to extend vocational education. Vocational education directs people a lot earlier in their career towards learning how to do a job. And we don't need everyone to have a degree. We need people to be functional at work. And that also means that the teachers need to understand the business processes, the practical skills required to actually do day-to-day jobs. So by doing that, also research to be directed to practical activities. So when we have problems in society, university research should target those problems to see how we could solve those problems. And so by combining vocational education with research that is focused, you basically get a broader range of skilled people to function. If it is based on vocational, they should be able to actually practice a real life activity. Now, in practice, I remember when I did my secondary school in Nigeria, I learnt woodwork, I learnt metalwork. Are they still doing these sorts of things now? No. And as a result of that, actually, those of us who learned it, some of us did, some of us didn't. Okay, I learned how to actually plant maize. Okay, in practice.
Right.
So it's not just from a textbook, in practice. That's vocational.